Dr. Helmut Habersack of Vienna, Austria, recently awarded Austrian of the Year for his research and leadership in river restoration. Unsatisfied with assuming that lab-scale research could accurately predict the behavior of the Danube River as it courses through 10 countries and transports millions of tons of goods, he campaigned for 14 years to build a lab right in the middle of the Danube that could research the powerful river's behavior in full scale. And the results have changed some of the basic assumptions designers and restorers took for granted. Lisa Waldenberger, a partner in EcoAdvance, interviews him.
Our project, EcoAdvance, is taking a new approach, putting individuals in the spotlight. By developing videos of star scientists, we demonstrate how individuals make an impact and dedicate their energies to making a difference. One of these star scientists is Helmut Habersack. So thank you for taking the time to share with us your personal and scientific journey to successful restoration projects. We are especially interested in how you work through project goals despite political, financial, and other challenges, and how you still manage to implement your plans. So maybe you can quickly introduce yourself.
My name is Helmut Habersack. I'm Professor of Hydraulic Engineering and Modeling at the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences, shortly BOKU, in Vienna, Austria.
And now maybe you can share some of your project experiences from your vast amount of experience in the past 20 years.
A lot of things changed over the past 20 years. There was a lot of enthusiasm with the Water Framework Directive at the beginning in 2000, when the Water Framework Directive in Europe, for example, started to get into appearance. And it was really the first time that the ecological targets, the ecological status of rivers was in the forefront, but no one knew how to do it. Mainly people were dealing with flood risk management, with hydropower, with navigation, but to have the biodiversity as a separate goal was not on the focus. Now, over the last more than 20 years, for me, it turned out more and more that we have to find a coexistence, a cooperation between the protection and the restoration on the one side and the usage on the other side. So we have only one Danube River, for example, that has to fulfill all the demands. It has to produce hydropower energy. It has to transport goods on the navigation route. It has to convey floods without damaging people too much. It has to transport the water from the mountains to the people to get drinking water supply or to reduce drought effects. But also at the end, of course, not at the end and last not least, but very important, is to keep the ecosystem lively and functioning. So that means we have enough fish from the number of fish species and also from the biomass there. This is a sort of contradiction in itself. And over the past 20 years, it changed a bit to my point of view from the conflicts. So the engineers versus the biologists and ecologists, and they were colliding. And at the end of the time, everyone will lose. So we talk about a lose-lose situation because no one can go forward. There's no new project to be done for the usage of the river. On the other side, there's everything lost what belongs to biodiversity, and fish die out at the end of the day. So having one river in the focus means we have to sit on the table and to work together. And we don't build a river for one purpose. We try to get the boundary conditions in the way, and that's the major point, so that the river can serve with the so-called ecosystem services, humans and nature at the same time. This will transfer the lose-lose risk into a win-win situation. This is to drill hardwood holes in a way, because it means you have to talk to a lot of people and people have to be convinced about this. This means you need always some persons that try to convince the other people why it is important to do that. And there are some prerequisites for doing this. That means you have to have a good story in a way, not in a bad way, a good way to say, we have one river. That's what I did all the time. We have only one river. Let's find a compromise, a win-win situation between usage and protection. Now, you cannot do it only by saying this. You have to have a lot of examples for this. And climate change works in this direction to easier convince people that things should be done in that direction. So we have more floods recently. We have more droughts recently. We have more people on this planet with more demands on the river. We need more electricity. With the CO2 question, we have with climate change and so on and so forth. So all together, we have to put this into one issue. And this means a sustainable river management. In order to do this, We have, of course, to do a lot of research as well, because we have to find, let's say, measures that allow to get this win-win solution. To give you one example, if we want to get the water depth at the Danube, as an example, of 2.5 meters for low water conditions, this means you have to narrow down the river in order to increase the water depth. But if you do that at the same time, you increase the transport capacity of the river, so you can transport more sediments, as we call them, bedload, particles, stones moving on the riverbed, because you decrease the width. And you increase the slope even, and so on and so forth. At the same time, you have, beside this, you have to improve the conditions for the biological environment, for fish, birds, and so on. So what is the solution? The solution would be to design new engineering measures in the context of river restoration. For example, groin structures that are built in a different way, different to the textbooks even, so we get a sort of erosion at the riverbank, which is restored. So kingfisher kind of habitats and other fish species and bird species. So we can get to a restoration at a certain area of the river, near the banks, for example, so we don't connect the groins to the riverbank, but we still get in the navigation route, we get a water depth of 2.5 meters.
Thank you. I mean, from my experience, for example, it's always difficult to make science understandable. So to have all the different stakeholders, especially, for example, the public that might, or policymakers who might not have the knowledge that you have as an expert, and therefore it's always something important to make science understandable. And you just opened up the new River Lab with also a public lab that is a way of introducing the science that you're producing to the public. So maybe you want to talk about that journey as well.
Yeah, it took me and took us 14 years from the first idea that was started in the US at a guest visiting professorship there, with the idea that we saw that with the classical scale models, where we have to scale down to a scale of 1 to 30, it might be difficult to do that for fish. You can't slice that up, or for trees, or even for people. We do experience with human people as well. So this is quite difficult. So we came to the conclusion that some of the formulations mathematically didn't work. But how to sell this? It's also selling the idea in order to get the funding, because the funding was done by the European Union and the city of Vienna, Lower Austria, and 4 ministries. So how to get all these people on board? This is to get a sort of fascination by the people to be able to link the usage and the protection of rivers, to do restoration, not kicking out the people, but with the people to take their wishes on board, and to have a certain area. And the rivers are a very good area for this, which people understand, because they look out of the window, they know a river. Of course, they seem also to be experts sometimes, so it's quite difficult then to find the balance between what they know and what they don't know, and to make it not trivial. So it shouldn't be trivial in a way, the examples you bring, but also not too complex. And in order to get an incentive, and also to get, let's say, push forward for the laboratory, we always said we don't want to be only a dusty, old-fashioned laboratory. We want the people to come here, like if we would sell chocolate or something, they could see something which they can enjoy as well. So they see the problems, but also see solutions in a positive way. Not only negative messages, everything is drowning and the world is going into a chaos. That might be, and we show a lot of examples of negative developments, but we have hope. We want to get forward for the future. We want to get the people part of this journey. And so with this public lab, what we told them is not to discuss the laboratory only, but they can come, watch us, what we are doing, and they get out something of it. Maybe not chocolate to eat, but some knowledge, some imagination, something which they can take home, basically, which they can work at. Not everyone has to become an engineer for rivers to do the restoration calculation, to do the mathematical calculations of hydraulics. That's not the point. The point is to support the development, to convince the movement of river restoration, and understanding that we have no other chance than to do that. Otherwise, we get really into a big problem. And if the people in their roles, be it an expert, be it a politician, be it a stakeholder, be it an inhabitant, a citizen, in every place, in every area, you can contribute. That's why we have also citizen science on board. And the people need to touch the water, they have to get wet fingers. It's not enough to say, I have my smartphone and I do everything here on my smartphone. This is something which we all do these days. But the kids need to play somewhere at the river in the best case, or they come to our lab in the public lab and they see some of these processes, how fascinating it is that restored river can move, restored river can live, and the concrete paved river is dead. So they understand then that the fish needs these movable conditions, but also that the usages have to have a certain boundary condition which is sustainable. And when you are able to convince the people, and you have to talk to all of them, so as I said, it took 14 years to get to the opening at the end. This is then something they are fully supporting. They want to be part of it. I think every project needs to do this, need to do some public work, need to convince people, need to have a goal which is worthwhile to do it. And we have green jobs. I don't understand why we cannot say river restoration is also economically interesting. Why should we only invest in times of economic crisis into roads and other structures, which might be important as well, but why not investing money into river restoration? It's the same planning company, it's the same construction company, it's the same authority that works for this. So there are a lot of jobs available for this. But we want to see restoration not only from one perspective. We don't want to lose the people. People are part of the ecosystem in a way, and we cannot decouple ourselves on the long run from all the living situation we have. So in a positive sense, we can contribute to this, and science and innovation is also needed to get innovative measures to be implemented. Then we can have an economic success, but also an ecological success.